Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our third City Government 101 on the City Clerk's office today. I'm so excited to be here with you all and glad you all could make it. So let's get started with some introductions. I'll go first. My name is Kevin Hayes. I'm a student at Michigan State University, and I am a lifelong resident of the city of Saginaw.
My name is Bill Ostish. I'm on the Saginaw City Council.
I'm Annie Bench. I'm one of the city council members. I've been with the city council since 2011.
Hello, I'm Janet Santos. I'm the Saginaw City Clerk.
I'm Chris Bolzman. I'm the Deputy City Clerk here in Saginaw.
All right. Once again, thank you so much for joining us today. So without further ado, let's get started here with some questions. Okay, so my first question is, what are the responsibilities of the city clerk's office?
Thank you, Kevin. We do assist the public via telephone and in person at our counter, and we do process incoming and outgoing mail, including packages. We are the official record keeper of all documents that the city has, and that includes city council minutes, ordinances, resolutions. We process and maintain business licenses and property registrations. We maintain voter records. We are known as like the general information contact for the public and the community. And we do also take calls on complaints. We create a complaint file and assign those to the appropriate department to follow up with.
Awesome. Sounds like you guys got a lot of records. All right, so my next question is, how many employees are there in the city clerk's office?
There are 5 of us currently right now.
Wow, sounds like a lot of work for 5 people.
It is. Thank you, Kevin. That does fluctuate a little bit during election season as we bring in election help into the office.
What is an average day in the city clerk's office like?
Well, that can vary. As Jan said, that we do quite a few different things depending on what time of year it is. If it's a license renewal season or a non-owner occupied, if it's the election, everything varies. The phones are busier at certain times. When there's taxes due, we're kind of the stopping point or the first point of contact for people when they call the city. We get a lot of general information questions. So that can vary on the average day. I kind of oversee the front office. You see me when you come in out with the girls, where Jan is more back in her office, doing the administrative stuff that goes along with being the keeper of the record for city council and different department heads, things like that. So it kind of varies. Obviously, it picks up on the election cycle. Gets quite busy. We've got on more staff. Am I having feedback for you guys? Yeah, I can hear it. But that concludes my answer there anyway.
Thank you. So now my last question on the overall day-to-day operations of the city clerk's office is, what is the clerk's role in relation to the city council meetings?
Well, I can provide that answer for you, Kevin. I serve as the clerk of the council, and I take the minutes of the proceedings and the actions that are approved by the council. I also, as clerk, I serve as their parliamentarian, and we want to make sure, I work in conjunction with the city attorney to make sure that the proper procedures are followed for the council.
Thank you.
Moving on to elections. And the first question we have is, how much advance preparation goes into an election?
Well, tons, oodles. We compare it to planning for the Super Bowl. A lot of time is spent on preparing, recruiting and training our workers, obtaining supplies, and ordering ballots. We have to test all the equipment and the ballots for predetermined results, and that helps us to ensure that the accuracy of the equipment for the safe and secure elections. We are issuing absentee ballot applications. We're issuing the absentee ballots. We're preparing a team to deliver the equipment prior to the election and also to pick up that equipment after the election day. So there's just a busy atmosphere here. We look like a beehive, just buzzing all around, doing all kinds of work, and then we deliver this great election result, safe, secure, and we're happy to do so and serve the community.
Do you mind if I add a comment onto that?
Please do, Bill.
So this year, Kevin, because it was I was elected in 2018, so I did not run this time. So I was able to work the election. And what Janet said is exactly true. It is really something to watch what goes on behind the scenes. Totally secure, especially when the ballots are coming in. There's a representative of each party that's coming in, and there's numbering systems, and it is really something to watch, and it's a well-oiled machine. So I encourage everybody, like the clerk does, to work an election, and then you can get the opportunity to see what it's like.
Thank you, Councilman Allstash.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
And if I may add as well, I was on the ballot this last time, so I didn't have the opportunity to work the general election, but I was able to work the primary, and I've worked other elections in the past. And the thing that is the most remarkable to me is that you assemble this group of people, and each individual's person and the level of commitment that they have to just ensuring that this right is, provided, and that it's, provided accurately. And just the dedication that goes just even from a volunteer level to the city staff, just seeing how committed they are to making sure that right is, preserved for people, and that it's, preserved in an accurate fashion. And I've always been just really impressed with how well and how chaotic it is, and how well it's run considering how chaotic it is, and just what a great job and how dedicated everyone is. So I've always enjoyed working the elections, and I hope, that's why I invited Councilman Ostash, and with his experience, and we hopefully every council member can work an election when they're not on the ballot. So thank you.
It's a long day, and I think I went home at 5:30 in the morning, and they were still just wrapping up. So lots of coffee. Yeah,
Yes, thank you. It's such a privilege that Americans have, and to have that integrity is very important for me as a clerk and my staff to ensure that they are treated fairly and within their rights as a voter. It's such a great American right to have to voice their opinion through the democratic process of elections.
Yeah, and you were one of our workers a couple of times also, weren't you?
Yes, I was. And if I may, I must say that I absolutely loved it. And every time election season rolls around, I'm looking forward to working the polls. I was a little intimidated, the first time, just because I'm so young, I wasn't sure if I was, cut out to work the polls. But, the training sessions were really informative. And the team that I worked with at the precinct that I was working were absolutely amazing. It almost feels like they're family now. I know all of them by name, and I look forward to seeing them in the following election. So I really, really highly recommend that anybody thinking about becoming a poll worker do so.
Got the next question, Councilman Ostash.
Next question. I've got the next question.
Yes, you
Does each election require the same amount of work no matter what is on the ballot?
Yes, it does. That is dictated by state election law, actually. So the process must be followed the same way, whether it's one proposal question, which we have had in the past, or if it's a full ballot like it was in November. There's a little bit of difference in the amount of workers that we need to hire, but obviously in November we needed all of them, everybody, right? But for a smaller election, we don't need to hire quite as many. But that's literally the only difference.
So could you tell us a little bit about what happens on election night after the polls close?
Of course. The chairperson and one worker comes back to City Hall. They bring their items back to the receiving board, which, as you guys know, is in the basement at City Hall here. That's kind of our war room at the end of the night. That's another beehive in itself. That's where everything is verified by those teams. Bill and Kevin were so helpful with uploading things to the website for us in November. So that's where they were stationed at the end of the night. All of those things are then transmitted to the county once everything is verified for accuracy, the reporting, everything is checked over real thoroughly. And the same applies with the absentee counting board. So those ladies are up in chambers during the day, and then at the end of the night with their stuff, 2 people come down, verify all of those items also before everything is sent to the county.
Okay, what do poll workers do, and do they get paid?
Yes, our election inspectors are paid, and the pay ranges from $145 on up to $170, depending on the task they are assigned into the precinct. And also, we do have smaller stipend amounts that are paid depending on the criteria, such as did they attend the training and are they one of the workers that returned at night? There's an additional pay for that.
If someone wants to become a poll worker because they've heard that they get paid and that they do lots of exciting, important work, how would they go about doing that?
They simply complete an election inspector application and they submit it to the city clerk's office. And the application is available at our office, and it's also on the city's website on the city clerk's page. Also, once we get that application, we review it and we would contact that applicant to come in and take very short quiz. And we accept applications year round. You know, any time of the year, if you have an interest coming up, we like to have you on file, ready to go.
Okay, and how do you register to vote at the city clerk's office?
Yes, you can. And there's just an application that has to be filled out. We'll ask for your ID just to verify your picture. But it's a very short process, just takes a couple minutes. You can also do it online if it's more convenient than coming into the clerk's office.
And there's just something that I thought about this too, kind of goes along with this question is, after you register to vote at the clerk's office that day during the election season, can you also vote at that time?
Yes, if we have ballots and you want to vote absentee, absolutely.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Is the perfect segue into the next question, and maybe we can have you elaborate a little bit more just in case anybody doesn't know what voting absentee is. But what is voting absentee, and is it secure? And how would somebody go about registering to vote absentee once they get themselves registered as a voter?
So voting absentee is where you apply for and you're issued your ballot before election day. You can either fill it out here at the clerk's office, you can take it home, you can call for an application that we would send to you in the mail. Once we receive that application back, then we can go ahead and send you your ballot. You do have to apply each time. So we have a permanent absentee voter list that you can also be put on, which what that means is before each election, we automatically mail you that application. And then once we get the application back, then we send you the ballot. You can also, if you don't want to wait, through making a phone call, waiting for the application to come in the mail, you can go out to the MVIC site, that's MVIC, and fill out your application and submit it there. And then it comes directly to our inbox. We get notification and we send you the ballot from there.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to that real quickly. Absentee voting, that means that you're not going to your polling location to vote. You no longer have to be absent from your community or choose a reason why. If you just simply wish and choose to vote at home or come into the clerk's office and vote, you can do that. Absentee voting just means you're not going to go to your designated precinct or polling location to vote on election day.
Which kind of leads right into our next question too, is like, how do we find our polling locations?
You can also go out to that MVIC site that I just mentioned, or you can call us, you can stop in. There is a link on the city's website also to the MVIC site, and it's just going to ask your name, address, birth date, and then it will show you, give you the address, bring up a map for you to find your location if you need that.
Okay, thank you.
Before I ask my next question, I want to just touch on something real quick with the absentee voting, because a lot of people know a lot more about absentee voting because we are still in the middle of a pandemic, and we had a huge election with bigger turnout than we've seen ever. During a pandemic, and most of those votes were cast via mail. And so I think people know about it for those reasons. And obviously, as we go forward, if we have health and safety or issues, that's a right we want to be able to exercise. But I voted absentee for many years leading up to the need to actually do it. And I have to encourage people to really consider making sure that they're registered, and then go ahead and just register absentee. You can always vote in person still and not send that absentee application in when it comes to you. So if you can always change your mind and go in. But if you vote absentee, you will never miss an election, because you get on that permanent list and they send you that application. So even if you're not thinking about that little millage that didn't cross your mind that might mean something to you, it's going to be there, and you're going to get it enough in advance that you can sit down and you can do your research. So when you have a ballot that's full and you got to flip it over to get to the city council and you've got 20 candidates, you'll have time to research every last one of them, because when we get to the ballot, sometimes we flip it over and people don't know what any of those proposals are. They don't know who their local elected officials are. And when you vote absentee, you've got no excuse. You've got all the time in the world to figure out who you want to vote for your Senate, who you want as president, and then get on down to the nitty gritty and the people who do the day-to-day stuff, and your neighbors basically that you get to elect. And all politics are local, and I think the best way to be an informed voter is to vote absentee, because you have time to research. So I just wanted to say that. And the next question is, how and why
I'm sorry, Annie, I wanted to add something onto that as well.
please do.
Yeah, the absentee voting too, they have to be sure that they return that ballot by election day at 8:00 p.m. And if they vote earlier in the election season and drop that off and then change their mind, they're still able to come into our office and have that ballot spoiled and issue another ballot and vote prior to election day. So those are just little things that the voter needs to be aware of, and I want them to be informed with that information with absentee voting. So,
Yes.
and
Thank you.
also absentee ballot, the city added additional drop boxes for ballots that are in use for election day. So in returning those absentee ballots, these drop boxes are located in 4 quadrants around the city. And that's an easy, convenient way for these voters to drop their ballot back in there. It's a secure, locked drop box for their ballots. We pick up ballots daily during election season. Non-election season, they remain locked. You can't put anything in the drop boxes. So thanks for the opportunity for me to add that.
Thank you for adding that, because that's
Yeah.
all very important stuff. And we had so many major changes with our state legislature recently, and they're wonderful changes, but they're a lot to wrap, for the average person to wrap their minds around. But the next question is again regarding polling locations.
Annie, I'm going to interrupt you again. I think Bill wants.
Real quick, because this is
sorry.
such, this is, yeah, this is, I'm, no,
waving.
Councilwoman, this is fantastic. You kind of covered more in depth what I was going to talk about. And Janet, thank you for saying that too, about the drop boxes in different locations, because as we went through the season, a lot of folks, they just felt more comfortable putting it into a box. That way they know it got there, they know it made it to the clerk's office. And then even if they wanted to, you can still follow back online, because Chris was talking about the system, and you can actually go and put your ballot number in. And I did that, and I could tell that Janet had my ballot, and I was happy, and my votes were going forward. So I just wanted to throw that in there real quick too. So.
Yeah, one point, Bill, I want to stress with that too is that the voter has to make sure that the drop box is for their jurisdiction. If you're a
Thank
City
you.
of Saginaw voter, make sure it's a City of Saginaw election ballot drop box. Don't
Yes.
drop it off into Zilwaukee or Carlton or even Saginaw Township. Don't do that, because that's the wrong clerk. Return it to the
Good point.
clerk of your jurisdiction. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, great point.
Okay, I'll try again.
Okay.
We're back to polling locations and precincts. But I wanted to know how and why are our precinct and polling locations chosen, or how are those boundaries drawn? Because I know as a poll worker, I get lots of questions. I'll have somebody come in and they'll come up and we'll verify their information, and we'll see that they don't vote there, but they're registered to vote somewhere else. And frequently, like one gentleman's like, well, I can see this polling location from my house, but he's actually a few blocks over at a different spot. And so I wanted to just elaborate a little bit on, maybe Jan can tell us some of the history of how we ended up you know, with our precincts being reduced and how, you know, how they ended up being drawn the way they are.
Thank you for that opportunity. There are actually two different processes, so I'm going to cover them one at a time. And I'm going to start with precincts. According to Michigan election law, the Election Commission is responsible to establish the precincts, and the maximum number of registered voter within a precinct is 2,999. So when that count gets closer, it goes over that Election Commission, we have to get together and we review those boundaries so that we maintain that accurate number of registered voters within a precinct, and we change them if necessary. Now, how you draw the boundary lines or what you can consider for your boundaries are main roads, rivers, significant boundary lines. It can't be like an alley or somebody's garage or something like that. They have to
Right.
be thoroughfares to establish your boundary lines. All effective voters during a change of a precinct, they must be provided a new voter registration card. That gives them notice of, hey, your precinct has been changed. This is where you now vote. So that's how that's handled. Polling locations, that is the building that the voters use to go to cast their votes. Those locations are usually within a precinct's boundary lines, but they're not required to be. So you could be in one precinct, but have to go to the polling location, say across the street or the block, to go vote. That's legal. The process to determine the polling location, we have to contact them and get their like a pre-approval. Yeah, you can consider using us. Then we do a site visit, my deputy and I, Chris, we go do a site visit. We determine the safety, the accessibility, functionality, etc. And then we present an agreement between both locations, and that goes to city council, and city council approves the polling locations.
So we see a fluctuation in those numbers potentially based on our population. So when the city of Saginaw saw significant reductions in our population or different shifts in the neighborhoods and where people are living, that determines, you know, how many polling or precincts go where, and then we decide our polling locations after the precincts are set. Is that?
Yes, due to the unfortunate loss of some residents within the city, that reduced our registered voter count significantly. So the Election Commission did a major review several years ago, and we were able to reduce the number of precincts, which did save the city some money, but we hate to lose the population. We want to maintain our community. But that's where we took a major review, redesigned our precinct boundaries and lines, and reassigned new precincts to the voters. So, and it's proven very effective and successful.
Have always done a great good job managing, you know, to make sure that the public was aware. I remember when that reduction happened, and I remember the lengths the office went to, you know, going to our neighborhood associations and just putting out different press releases and things like that, trying to make sure that everybody understood where, you know, where if you voted here before, this is where you vote now. Make sure you get everything in order and in time for the election. So.
Right. And one voter, you know, say like you mentioned your example that, well, I see a polling location there. I live right across the street, but I got to go over there and vote now. But for another voter, that was vice versa, that had the same situation. Now that voter lives across the street and can go to that location. So the boat shifts where you're sitting in the boat. So, yeah.
Yep.
Sense. Thank you, Dan.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay. So Chris was kind of talking about after the election night, you know, everything's tallied and sent to the county. So what kind of state and county oversight is involved with our city elections?
Well, several reports are required to be filed directly to the state, that we file to them directly. The county clerk provides the programming for the election equipment and orders our ballots. We determine how many ballots we want to order, and they work with the vendor. We are required to forward the election night results to the county, which in turn forwards that to the state.
Okay.
And then they do also have their canvassers. The county has a board that comes in after the election, reviews everything that we sent them. Same thing with the state. They review everything that the county did.
Thank you so much, guys, for those amazing questions and answers regarding elections. So now I'd like to ask some questions for those of us in the community who may be interested in making our own bid for office one day. So who has to file to run for office with the city clerk?
City council candidates and the Saginaw School Board candidates file here at the city clerk's office.
Okay. So with that being said, how do you file to run?
Well, the council candidates, they must file an affidavit of identity and petitions that are signed by not less than 50, not more than 100 registered voters in the city. And we encourage candidates to file well before the deadline, as we must verify those signatures to confirm how many are valid. And if the candidate needs more signatures, we can notify them and they'll have more time to obtain those additional signatures and file additional petition sheets. And school board candidates, they must file an affidavit of identity, and they have the option to file the nominating petitions with the signatures, or they can pay a $100 non-refundable filing fee. But both council and school board candidates are required to file campaign papers with the county clerk's office.
Okay. So how do you qualify for the ballot once you file?
So by filing an affidavit with the nominating petition with the appropriate signatures with the clerk's office, and then in tandem with the campaign finance document that you file with the county clerk's office, that makes you qualify on the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, Kevin, those forms that we're talking about, affidavit of identity and petition forms, those are available at our office as well. And I believe you can pick them up at the county clerk's office.
Very nice. So my final question for you guys is, what do you file with the county clerk when you run for city council?
Just those campaign finance documents.
Mhm. Yep. And so Annie might even want to add on to this being she just went through the process again though. And there are just documents too that the county clerk is going to go over with you and make sure that everything is filled out properly. And if there was any, you did any fundraising or such like that, there's a lot of things that will get recorded, and the county clerk will actually help you through that process as well, so that all of that stuff will eventually be sent to the state and recorded.
Do you have to file those campaign finance forms with the county regardless of whether you fundraise or not for your election?
It depends.
Yes.
There's a yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
And
you
then
do.
yes, you do. And then there's certain things depending on like how much you maybe raised during your campaign season. So, but they will actually help you through that entire process. So like even Janet here at the clerk's office, and then also you're kind of working in tandem with the two entities. And I was going to make a comment too, because you were talking about the signatures that we have to gather for your application. I know when I did it, it was really important to watch your zip codes. And so make sure you get enough signatures, because like Janet said, they are verifying signatures, and they're verifying that the folks that were signing your petitions do live within the city of Saginaw that you're running for.
And Janet, you mentioned that you encourage candidates to file as early as possible because if there are corrections and things like that, because you need to have your taxes paid, you can't be in arrears to the city, you have to be a registered voter. And those are all things that if you find them while somebody's trying to file and they have an advance notice of it, they can always take care of it, make sure they qualify for the ballot. Now, my question, and I knew the answer at one time because I like to do things early, but how early is too early? Because I know that there is a time frame where if I take out petitions for the following election, that those signatures are only good for so long. If you know, as far as like if I pull them and I don't submit them. So what is that time frame as far as from when you pull them before, because I think there's a window of time. I can't basically, like, I can't start collecting city council signatures for 2024 right now, and then hold on to them until then, because those won't be valid come that election. That's my point.
Correct. Right. That's a very good point, Annie, and you want to be cognizant of that if you're a candidate and considering it. But the general rule, I believe, is like 90 days out to pick up petitions and start your campaign work then in that order. You might want to start your campaign a lot earlier, but the actual filing of petitions and signature gathering can start like 90 days out.
And then, is there anything that you or Chris would like to add that we haven't covered, or anything that you guys think would be important for anybody listening to know that, that we haven't covered yet?
Actually, Annie, I think you asked about the security of the absentee ballots, and I don't think that I highlighted on that. Just want to go back to that for a quick second to reassure everyone, because I know that was a hot ticket item that people had questions about in November. Everything is super secure. Like Bill was mentioning, if you question whether your ballot has been received prior to the election, you go out to the MVIC site. When we receive the applications here, there are the ballots here, they are stored securely until election day, and then they're moved up where they're sequestered with the AV team on election day. And every ballot that we have, as long as it's signed, was received by election day, those are processed. So we just want to reassure everybody of that.
Yeah, and by moving up, Chris is talking about either her or I. They're in a custody of the city clerk's office that takes them upstairs to the second floor. They never leave our custody to someone else. It's always with an election official.
One of the things that, since it was such a hot topic that we heard so much, was that, people were being mailed ballots when they weren't solicited. And I know you had touched before that if you're on the permanent list, you will be mailed an application, and there is a difference between the application and the ballot. You don't get the ballot without turning in the application. So I wanted to clarify that. But what happens, and I know the answer, but say I get my absentee ballot issued to me, I get my application in the mail, and I submit that, and I get my ballot back, and I vote and I send it in. And then, because I'm up to no good, I decide to go into the polling location that day and just see if I can get in, maybe cast an extra vote. What safeguard is in place so that doesn't happen?
Good question.
When we train our election workers, we train them on the electronic poll book, which is that laptop you see that's in front of the workers at the table. They're looking at a full list, up-to-date list of all the voters within our jurisdiction and across the state. They have statewide lookup, but they're looking at, I'm sorry, just our jurisdiction-wide from precinct. They're trained during that to read these special codes on that list and to look in an informational box. And they will see for that voter that ballot has been returned, cannot vote in the precinct. That voter will be not denied, will be saying, we have received your ballot back. We cannot issue you another one.
When I've worked elections in the past, I've never actually, in my experience, had somebody come in and try to vote twice. And it's anecdotal, but I've never had that experience. The experience I did have, especially with the change in the absentee ballot, was that some people would get their application and submit it and get their ballot, and then they'd lose it because they didn't vote and they didn't submit it. And then they'd come to their polling location and say, I forgot to mail it in. I don't know where it went. Can I still vote? And that's when you talk about spoiling ballots. You go in to that poll book that Janet was referring to, and you look up that ballot, and you find that very ballot that was issued to that individual, and you spoil it. So no matter where it is.
Annie, I think I want to stop you right there, because if the voter was issued a ballot and did not return it yet, that worker is trained to contact our office first, because we download that information after 4 o'clock on Monday prior to election day. That's how current it is. In the meantime, on election day, that voter could have dropped that ballot off here or a drop box, and we did get it back where it won't show on the computer in the precinct. So
Right.
you have to contact us to verify, did we get this ballot back yet or not? If we did not, then the voter must complete the form in the precinct attesting to that they have lost or destroyed their ballot before they're issued another one. Then we go through the spoil process.
Right.
If they cannot, if they can't surrender that ballot, yeah, they could surrender the ballot. They could bring it back in and say, here's the ballot that you sent me, but I want to vote in the precinct. They can do that without contacting the clerk's office and then proceed with the spoiling of the ballot, issuing another one.
Gotcha. Right. And so, but there is a very clear, secure process set in place that if somebody wanted to vote at the last minute and could not surrender their ballot in order to do so, there is a secure way where we go through a process as the poll worker contacting the clerk's office to verify that that ballot is in fact gone and spoiled and not voted. And then we can reissue it, or you can go, confirm that they actually did vote and say, no, we can't reissue anything to you and we can't spoil it. It's already, or you've already gone too far or whatever. So I just want to make sure I ask that because I know it's really important to people with the changes that they don't feel like they have, their options off the table, or that they can, follow up and change their mind and make sure that they vote, or that they're not going to run into any day of the election obstacles, because people do, have lots of barriers to getting to the polls, unfortunately. And we try to do our best at as the poll workers, and then as the, the city and the clerk's office, to make sure that those barriers are at least minimal on our side.
Right. It takes a full team, and that is our safeguard. We have excellent workers, excellent team here in the city of Saginaw. I'm very, very proud of them. And one thing too, that with the same day voter registration on election day, if the voter has to come into their local clerk's office to register, they have that option then to vote right here at the clerk's office, or go to their precinct if time will allow them and vote there. If they choose to go to the precinct, they're going to take a receipt from our office that they registered and that they are clear to be issued a ballot. That means, that receipt will mean that we looked them up statewide and we looked around there. They haven't voted yet, they weren't registered, or that they are qualified to register. Then we go ahead, register them, give them their receipt to go to the precinct and vote. So that's another safeguard that is in place.
This is all really good information for the folks that are going to be watching, because there, like Annie said, there were so many questions around this, and I hope that this conversation really will help, put some folks at ease that there really is a lot of rigor that goes into this, a lot of checks and balances.
Absolutely.
Do either of you have anything else you'd like to add?
I do. I just want to mention real quickly too that usually following every election, there was a random audit that would be done by the state. Either you were chosen or not chosen. You don't know what precinct would be chosen by the state. It's all random. And the county gets the assignments then within their jurisdiction, their county, of what jurisdiction to go to and what precinct to audit. And this last election, since all of this discussion was going on, the city had 2 precincts, Chris? 3 precincts that were chosen for this random audit. And we passed 100%. Everything matched. Everything on the ballot was hand counted to what the tabulator tabulated and counted. It matched 100%. All our reports were in order and complete. And we were so proud, and that's what we expected. But it just, as a city clerk, I know that's there and I know that's done, and I hope that instills the trust back into the community with their elections, that it is safe, it is secure. Absentee voting is safe and secure. It gets very confusing when so many other interest groups are sending out the absentee applications, because a voter is having a hard time determining who's sending me this application. I thought I returned one. Why are you sending me another one? And some of them, their language, they call it a ballot, and it's an absentee ballot. No, it's not. So what the form really is, when they call here, we have to just kind of walk them through it. Who was it from? It wasn't from us. It's not the Secretary of State, it's these other interest groups. So that confusion, I know, is out there for the voters, and I sympathize with them because I get the same kind of mail as a clerk. So, yeah.
Good point.
I do have another another question because I don't know if it actually came up. I know it wasn't included in the questions, but you guys touched on the secure drop off places that we have in the different quadrants, there we go, in the city. And I just wanted to have you guys elaborate a little bit because that was done with grant money that you guys sought, and that was a really big deal and just a very, very wonderful and positive thing that you guys were able to do for the city through your work in that office. And it just, if you could talk a little bit about that grant just a little bit, and and obviously we get to keep those drop boxes. So that was a one-time expense that the grants are often one-time things, but I wanted to celebrate that a little bit before we go, because that was a really big deal and we don't normally get that kind of money that easy.
It is. Thank you, Annie. That's an excellent grant, and I'll focus a little bit more on that, and Chris will share too. But what I want to make clear right away is the ballot drop boxes were purchased with general fund money of the city, not the grant fund dollars. That's a big difference. I want the voters to understand that's how they were purchased and put in place, not with the grant funding. But yeah, this grant funding that we applied for and were awarded 402,000, little over that money. Huge difference. The additional equipment and storage facilities, and even with the flood of all the absentee ballots that has been such a significant increase in, we were able to have the trays to store them and to help process them. The electronic openers, envelope openers, saving time for the workers and processing of them. It was just a huge thing. Being able to hire more workers and offering them an incentive pay during this COVID-19 pandemic of the high risk pay, we were able to offer that because of this grant money. That was huge. That got us some excellent workers, and just the food that we were able to provide these workers, because it is such a long day. We were able to give them coffee and food, and that was because of the Zeta Pi Beta sorority sister group. I mean, bless their hearts, the way they came forward and gave us the money to help defray that cost for the food, meals and beverages and snacks for our workers. Made a huge difference, and they just came in brighter and more refreshed at night when they were returning with the results. It was just lovely. I can't say it better. Chris, please add.
Yes, the equipment that we were able to get that made it easier for the workers also. You know, we had kind of the bare minimum on the laptops as far as requirement that the state allows, and we were able to get the higher threshold, you know, of all brand new laptops. We were able to get the barcode scanners instead of the clunky driver's license scanners that, you know, the voters can scan their own ID, and that made a huge difference. The voting booths that we had that were in pieces, you know, parts of them broken that we were lugging out. We were able to get the quad booths that have ADA booth built right into it. They're on wheels. It's just a one thing pop up. We will never have a problem with booths again. The PPE that we were able to do, the sneeze guards, that if you were out in the precinct, you saw those, keeping our voters safe, just everything. It was fantastic what we were able to do this time.
I'm going to add on to that too, because Janet, you mentioned the food that was being delivered to the poll workers. I was actually, that's what I did during the day before I came back to City Hall at night, and was helping input stuff into the website. The folks at the people that were working the precincts, we walked in and some didn't know, and it was just the excitement, like you said, on their faces, like, wow, we're getting water and food. I'm like, yeah, we're going to be back for lunch, and then we're bringing dinner. And so you really did see that change this year. And like you said, Chris, with just all the new equipment, you could see it was a lot easier for people to maneuver and to get their ballots done too. So it really was a huge benefit to have this year. And again, thank you to the sorority and Councilwoman Scherzer's, throw her name in there, Councilwoman Scherzer's sorority for providing all that money too for the food that day. It was excellent.
So if I may, the Zeta Phi Beta gals, they do some wonderful work, and short of getting another grant or counting on them, and I do apologize for misstating about the purchase of the boxes. I think I knew that at one point, but there's only so much room in my head anymore, I think, for information. But
Me too.
short of them, coming through and defraying those costs, in the future, and sort of getting another grant, because often those grants are not something you can always seek again. And certainly I know our staff is tenacious and they will go after anything that we might qualify that'll help us here in the city of Saginaw. But barring that happening, what can the community do? Whether it's groups, whether it's businesses, whether it's individuals, what can the community do to help support the clerk's office during election season? Because hopefully we're not going to see a decrease in turnout because we have so many new absentee voters. Hopefully we're going to continue to see, because I know the polls that I looked at, you had a huge influx in the absentee votes, but you had nearly the same record turnout in person that you did in the regular election years prior. So, I'm hoping that's a trend. And I'm just wondering, what can we do? How can we as council members, organize and encourage people to either contribute or think of creative ways to be supportive of our poll workers and our clerk's office during such an important time of the year?
I can appreciate that very much, Councilwoman Bench, and that's something that Chris and I look at year round, of ways to improve and what can we do different and how can we reach out. I mean, we've gone to the local high schools and even elementaries, and we've presented there and tried to recruit workers. We've been in the outreach, like you said, neighborhood associations and the county-wide meetings or citywide meetings we've attended and presented to those groups as well. Keeping that information out there, using our social media and our city website and SGTV, putting that information out there every election of deadlines and dates and that kind of thing. People sharing the good word that elections are safe and secure. Go vote, go participate, be part of the program, and we're always looking for it. I do have an election review team that we've coordinated several years back. We do have a meeting this coming Monday, April 19th. And that's one of the focuses of that review team is review the past election, look for future elections. What can we do different and what can we strategize on and focus on and share out there? And there's quite a few different stakeholders out in the community that serve on this review team. Their input is very vital. We didn't have one in 2020 because we were busy running 3 elections during the pandemic. So I'm anxious to meet and sit down with them here next Monday. So, Chris, anything you want to add?
I would like to add a message to our poll workers that we had in November. Please come back. There was an outpouring. Everybody was super interested in November, which was fantastic. But we need that kind of turnout every time. The more the merrier. We train, we pay. It's a great experience, like you guys have been aware. So hoping that everybody that worked in November will come back.
Yes, and I have a good feeling that the gubernatorial election coming up next year in 2022 is going to be very significant. You got your top 3 candidates in the state. They're going to be up for election. So I think there's going to be a real good turnout, and I hope that interest stays out there in voting and with what goes on, because it really governs what affects us as citizens. So let's be part of who we're electing. It's just a great privilege to have.
It sure is. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Chris. And thank you, Councilman Ostash, very much for participating today. I really appreciate you guys. And Kevin, I thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us, Annie.
Yeah, thanks for having us. A lot of fun. Anytime, I'd love to do it again.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, I just want to say thank you so much, guys. I can promise you I will be returning for the next election as a poll worker. And so I really want to hit home on that to any young people out there who are interested in working the polls. Really take the time to consider it. It's really easy. It's a great way to engage with people in the community. Every time I work, I see a whole bunch of people that I know at the polls, and it's just nice to see faces, especially during the pandemic when we haven't seen as many people as we normally would. And even if you're just strapped for a little bit of cash, I mean, this is a good way to get some. So please do consider. And I just want to say thank you so much to the city clerk's office for making me feel, as a resident of the city of Saginaw, that my vote is secure.
Good. Excellent.
I want to add really quick too that we are very appreciative for everything the clerk's office does, and without elaborating further, in the time that I've been on council, I think almost every endeavor I've embarked upon, whether it was an ordinance or there's always some tie into the clerk's office, and it just goes to show you what an integral part of the city operations they are, whether they're running an election or whether they are fielding complaints. And I know how many complaints and different calls I get for general information as one member of council. I can only imagine the things that you guys deal with and have to address on a daily basis. And I want to express my eternal appreciation to you ladies. You guys are true public servants, and we are so fortunate to have you guys with us working here. So thank you.
Yep, and I'll leave that too, because I was just thinking about it in the clerk's office, especially during the council meetings. They're kind of like the conductor. They're watching, and because a lot of times your council members will get deep into conversation, and there may be amendments to motions and stuff. So the parliamentary pieces are so important, and Janet does a fantastic job. Chris the other night too. They know just how to bring you back to where you need to be, and to get you through that process. So that's really important for me that they provide that for us, for the council, because we do get into some good conversations.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you so much.
Okay.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody have a nice night.